So this is one of my most exciting podcasts that I've recorded so far. I'm here with the beautiful Kathleen Cameron. She is a true inspiration to me. I've been following her work now for some time. She's got a huge social media following, and she's a master manifester, mentor, coach, and she used to be a nurse, which is why I'm so excited to interview you today, Kathleen. Thank you so much for joining me. Huge gratitude. I know you're a very busy lady, so thank you. And welcome.
My absolute pleasure. I think it's so beautiful what your podcast is about and, life after public service. And I think this is so good because I think people would think that maybe life after public service isn't necessarily going to be the best, or they don't know what it's going to be like. And I think I can give a beautiful testament and example to how it can be so magical and so incredible and so lovely. Yeah.
I've nursed for 30 years now nearly, and I'm coming towards the end of my career, but I'm going to be exiting sooner than I would do if I waited for my pension. And a lot of that and a lot of the inspiration has come from you. So, for example, this podcast was born after I met you and discovered your work and my coaching and so many things that have happened in the last few months. So it's really fabulous. So I'm going to ask you some questions. I've got a few jotted down, if you don't mind, because I really wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of some of these things. So before you became a seven-figure mentor, what did a day in the life as a nurse look like? And had you ever imagined that you'd then be following this path?
Wow. I love this question. So before I quit my nursing career in June of 2019, I was a director for the provincial government here in Canada. So basically that was healthcare administration. So I had gone from, I've always been a driven woman. So I had gone from bedside nursing to becoming the charge nurse on the unit, to becoming the manager who then, managed an entire unit of nurses, to then becoming a director. So what my life had become, which was so interesting, was that I had my own office. I worked in a physical office space for home care. So my portfolio was nurses, occupational therapists, physical therapists that all worked with older adults living in the community. So I worked with the older adult strategy, the dementia strategy, and mental health strategy. So a lot to do with the mind and cognition and awareness and all of that, right? But also physical mobility. But anyway, so I had probably 200 people under my portfolio, staff members, nurses, occupational therapists, physical therapists. And so my life was about policies and procedures and management and all that kind of stuff. So I would commute 1 hour a day to get to the office. And then I would get there about an hour before everybody else because I had so much responsibility, so much work to do that I didn't get quiet time. And then once the day started at 9, I was in meetings from the moment I stepped into the office until I was done at 6 p.m. No lunch breaks, no coffee breaks, no time to myself. It was meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. And then I would commute home an hour, pick up the kids, make dinner, do the bedtime routine, and then I'd be back on my laptop answering emails and trying to do some of the work from the meetings, because there's all these action items from all these meetings, but there's no time to actually execute any of it. So the laptop would come back out and I would do a couple hours of work before I would go to bed. So my life was pretty much every day that.
Yeah, and that rings so true for, other sort of exec and director positions that I've interviewed that have left the NHS. They were salaried, they weren't earning an hourly rate. And actually, if they'd have looked at the number of hours they were putting into their days, it was phenomenal and hugely stressful. So I should imagine that, your life was pretty stressful at that time.
Yes, very much so. And I also experienced a lot of pressure. I don't say that I got pressured because I now know pressure is something that's within me, but I was experiencing it. I allowed myself to feel that pressure and a lot of responsibility. And a lot of the nurses that worked for me were making more money than me because they were doing overtime and they were part of the union and things like that. But it wasn't about the money for me. It was about impact. It was about drive. It was about success. It was about serving more people. So I was willing to make less to make a bigger impact, which is a belief system. Now I actually believe that I'm making a bigger impact and I get the beautiful ability to make more because that's what I'm choosing. But I chose that back then because that's all I thought was available.
Obviously, you said you started as a bedside nurse, and nurses often witness some, really difficult and tragic situations at times. So how did your experience of nursing impact your emotional well-being over the years of that sort of service in that career?
Yeah, I'm so grateful to have been able to experience what I've experienced through nursing. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it was very, very rewarding work, but very emotionally draining work because, I've worked in palliative care, dementia
Mm.
care, labor and delivery, postpartum. And so I saw everything from new life coming into the world to new life coming into the world and then leaving the world right away.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
had a lot of stillborns, a lot of deaths. I've even experienced women leaving their physical bodies as well after having their children. A lot of like loss and traumatic experiences I've been a part of and observed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's the palliative care side of things where people leave the world in such a beautiful way, but then there's people that leave the world in a way that's not so beautiful and not so nice and can be quite traumatic. So I think for me, I experienced a lot of sadness, I'm a very, very empathetic person.
Mm.
Now I see empathy differently, so I don't absorb emotion. But back then, the old version of me, I was empathetic, so I felt it all,
Yeah.
and it can be very emotionally and physically draining as well. And I think the nature of the work also led to me not prioritizing my health. And so I used to I would come home and be so sad and drained and low that the last thing I wanted to do is go work out.
Yeah.
I would and I would eat my emotions too. So, and the nursing
Yeah.
station, let's be real. There's not a lot
Yeah.
of healthy food at nursing stations. It's donuts and chocolate and all
Yeah,
that.
and I draw so many parallels. I mean, obviously, you've found a different and perhaps a better way of living your life earlier than I've done. But there's so many parallels. Exactly that. The moral injury that you experience, the emotion that you feel because you're in that situation, and obviously, um, you give a little bit of yourself every time that you are in a situation with an individual in that way because you connect with them. So of course you give a little bit of yourself. I suppose, is there a moment, or I suppose a pivotal moment during your early life or your nursing days where you felt a calling for something more, but you just didn't know what that was? When did
Yeah.
you start to realize?
Yeah, this is so good because I always felt that feeling for more. Like, even as a bedside nurse, I was looking at what the charge nurse was doing and being like, oh, I think I'd like to do that. And then I was looking at what the managers were doing. And so my mind was just limited because I thought the call to more meant more in healthcare, more
Yeah.
in nursing, more in the box. So I would only see as far as the possibilities within that industry held. So it was like,
Yeah.
okay, as far as I could go is to probably be a CEO of a hospital. Like that's it. Or the top of the pay scale in the union. You'd see like, okay, maybe I'll make 100,000. That's it. And so
Yeah.
my mind would only go that far. But I remember one day I started following this woman on social media. Her name was Jen, and she was in corporate, but she was building this business online. And it was in like a network marketing company and selling products. And she was like starting to work for herself and was quitting her corporate career. And I went, interesting. And so I started following her. We started chatting, and she started introducing me to like other people too, like other women. And I started seeing all these women that were working for themselves, that had online businesses, that were walking their kids to the bus every day, which I never did, that were
Yeah.
picking their kids up from the bus, that were going to the gym in the middle of the day, that were working from home, that had all of this freedom. And I was like, okay. And then I find out one of them's making 20 grand a month. And I went, something is not right. Like, how is it possible that a woman that has way less education than me, I have 3 degrees. I was in university for 9 years, plus like another
Yeah.
6 certifications in healthcare. So like, how is it that a woman that has 1 degree, or maybe just college, I don't even know, is making 4 times more money than me in a month, doing it from home while being with her children, while working out in the middle of the day every day? Something's got to give. And so I started thinking, does my life actually have to be like this? Do I need to be commuting 2 hours and meetings all day? Yada, yada, yada. And that's where my mind came outside of the box that it was in.
Yeah.
And I started to think from there. So I actually started a very similar business to her in the network marketing industry and replaced my income with that for my nursing career. And that's when I stopped my nursing career, was that. But not even 6 months later, I launched my coaching business
Yeah.
because I
Brilliant.
went even further and started thinking outside of the box of that business. And it was like, you know what? Actually, I don't want to partner with anybody else. I'm going to do my own thing. And then by
Yeah.
January, I'd done my own.
And that's it. And this is the whole reason for this podcast, is that I think when you go into a public service role, whatever that might be, you can feel stuck in that box. You feel stuck by the fact that they've sold you this package, which is, everything that anybody could ever possibly wish for. You're getting remunerated. So you know what's coming in every month. You're getting a benefits package. You're getting the pension. You're getting paid sick leave. You're getting paid holiday, all of that. And also you're doing a brilliant thing for the community. You've got all this status within the role. And so a lot of people feel stuck in it. And also there's an element that people can feel guilty leaving that. So that's some of the sort of themes I've been exploring. But for me, what you do now is very empathetic, and it's still very similar in many, many ways to what you were doing in nursing. So what part of your nursing career shaped your passion for helping people the most? And how does that show up in your work today?
It's so beautiful because it makes complete sense what I do today based on my nursing career, because nursing is a caring profession. You don't become a nurse if you don't care about people and if you don't want to take care of people, if you don't want to nurture people. So the fact that I graduated from university, decided to go into nursing and to care for people, it made sense. It made sense for the type of woman that I was and the way I felt about people in life. Like, I was a little girl that wanted to take care of her dolls and nurture and that feminine part of me presented itself so beautifully. And so nursing, it made sense. It was good. It was a good synergy. But then when I started to move over into business, I was like, okay, how can I create a business that gives me time and financial freedom, that feels like a caring profession, that feels like I'm still able to impact people? And I actually do feel, and I did plant this idea in my subconscious mind. It's a belief that I'm choosing to have. So whether it's true or real for you, doesn't matter. But for me, I now believe on purpose that this is the most impactful work that will ever be done in this world, and that it is even more important than direct nursing care. I believe that what I do keeps people from needing direct nursing care. I believe that the work that I do keeps people out of hospitals. It keeps people healthy. It keeps people wealthy. And overall, it keeps people younger and more energetic and loving and caring. And there will be less crime. There will be less injury. There will be less suicide. There will be less illness, disease, the more people are thinking from this place. So I think that my impact is far greater now. I'm impacting hundreds of thousands of people now. My Instagram insights told me the other day that we had almost 1 million people view, 1 million views of my Instagram account. So from a nurse who used to have 5 patients on a hospital unit in a shift, that was my impact, to now over 1 million views on my Instagram. I mean, we can't even compare the level of impact that I'm having.
Absolutely. And again, some of those points you've touched on, when people need hospital, it's because they have a disease process going on often. And a disease is dis-ease with the body. And a lot of that starts in the mind. And I don't think people realise that your gut is your second brain. So, if you're not in the right headspace, you can often experience gut problems, gut symptoms equally. If your gut isn't well nourished and well looked after, it can affect your mental health. There's so much that is out there about, the impact of the psychology and the mindset that you have impacting your health. So what you're doing is incredible. And I truly, truly agree with that. So this is an interesting question, because obviously I wanted this to be a really impactful piece of work that I'm doing and a really impactful interview. And often I just let people tell their story and sort of ramble through, but I specifically wanted these really nice questions for you. So this is a good one. If you had to start over today with just your mindset and no followers, what's the first thing you'd do to rebuild your success?
This is so beautiful because when I started, I had no followers, right? I started off with 200 people on Facebook and grew it up to, I think I have almost 90,000 on my Instagram and 20,000 on my Facebook or something like that. So what I would do differently this time with the knowledge that I know now is I would manifest the growth of my social media platforms even faster. And what I mean by that is it's all energetics, it's all vibration, it's all feeling. So I understand now that when I believe that I have 1 million followers in the mind, and I energetically show up as someone with 1 million followers and subscribers, that literally calls in the 1 million people to my platform. So if I'm showing up every single day and I'm doing a reel and I'm posting that reel and I think it's going to get 100 views and I'm talking to the 100 people that I think are going to be there, it's a vibration. So now what I do is I actually post a post or a reel, or I talk to my audience like there's 1 million of you. And so I'm like, okay, there's 1 million of you. So I talk in that vibration, that energy, that feeling, and I disregard views. So the views might be 9,000 views, but in my head, it's over 1 million views. And so I'm coming from that vibration, that energy. So I'm acting in that assumption. I didn't do that at the beginning. It took me a little while, but now I'm doing that, and now I'm seeing everything grow really quick. So I would actually do that right away, and to be thinking from the version of yourself that's making far greater of an impact than you actually are.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's a really great answer. I love that. So, what was the single most pivotal moment that made you truly believe in the power of manifestation?
So, when I first started in this material, I took a course with Bob Proctor in September of 2019. And when I started in this work, I started to practice manifesting little things. And I will never forget when there's so many little examples, but I'll give you the first one. I was like, you know what? I'm going to manifest a coffee today. I would love a coffee. I don't know where it's going to come from. I don't know who's going to bring it, but I would love a coffee. And I just let it go. I'll be like, that's really great. I'd really love it. And I thought about drinking a coffee and how delicious that would be. My cleaning girl, who used to come once a month, Tiffany, her name was, she calls me. And she never calls me. She just comes and cleans. She calls me and she's like, hey, I'm going to Tim Hortons. Do you want a coffee? And she's never brought me a coffee, never asked me that before in my life. And I went, did I just do that? Is that a coincidence? I was like, wow. So here I am. She comes in with this coffee and I take a sip of this coffee. And it was that exact same feeling I'd imagined when I thought about wanting a coffee. And I was like, okay, this stuff works. I'm powerful. I literally thought about a coffee, which made her think Kathleen might want a coffee. I should ask. She felt my thought energy that had her call me and ask me if I wanted a coffee, which she would have never thought had I never thought it before, because she never did. So I did it again with winning a prize. I did it again with being on TV. I said, I would love to be on TV in some way. And then somebody tells me, well, why don't you apply for a makeover on this show? And I said, okay. So I applied for the makeover on the show and they call me and I'm going like 2 weeks later. Like things like this. And then I wrote down on a piece of paper, you know what? If I could do anything and be anything, and okay, what would I love? You know what? I'd love to write a chapter. I said, I'd love to be a best-selling author. That sounds cool. I'd love to do that one day. And then next thing you know, I have this girl reach out to me on Instagram and she's like, hey, I'm writing a self-love book. I'd love for you to write a chapter in the book. And I was like, stop it. Like I literally just wrote it down and now you're asking me to write the chapter? And then I said, and you know what? This book's going to go bestseller. She's like, how do you know? I'm like, because I wrote that down. And then it went bestseller in April. So it's all of these little things. But what they did, Donna, if I'm being completely honest, it's not about the little itty bitty manifestations, right? It's about the belief that I then had from them. So from manifesting a coffee, from writing a chapter in a book, from manifesting that I win this like giveaway, this draw, they all solidified a belief in me of how powerful I am and how I'm doing this. And so now I believe I am the most powerful manifestor in the world. I think things into literal existence and they just happen. And I created this idea that I'm going to be interviewing the world's biggest manifestors, top celebrities, and telling their stories of how they manifested it all. And a month ago, I was in Jason Derulo's house interviewing him about his success. And now I'm in business with him and doing a course. Like, it's all from here into the physical form. It's all ideas. And so my belief in manifestation is what's literally creating the manifestations.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? And you talk about, I mean, I've watched you and I've listened to you lots, and you talk about, you know, literally everything that is ever created, anything that is ever invented, everything that, you know, is ever produced starts in somebody's mind. It's an idea in somebody's mind before it becomes the reality. And that really resonated with me. And I've been sort of following the vibrational work and things like that for a long time, for decades, actually. And I always knew that I was going to be a matron. So I'd always told myself I was going to be a nurse and I was going to be a matron one day. And here I am. But then I'd also, come from quite a poor background. We lived in a 3-bed semi-house, but there were 3 girls and my mum, and, we didn't have a lot. And I'd always told myself, I'm never going to need to rely on a man for money. I'm always going to be independent, make my own finance myself effectively, which, I'm married and we share everything, but I could quite easily, walk away very comfortably. And I always decided, and it is about the decision, isn't it? You make the decision in your mind that one day I would be living in a 4-bed semi-detached house, which was beyond sort of anything that you could have dreamt of when I was a child. And I'm just going to tell you this one story, because when I was really into sort of this work before, and I lost my way a little bit with it. So I sort of did it and I saw some results, and then I was in and out, if you know what I mean. So I know the power of my thinking. I'm always try and reframe things to be the positive, but actually the manifesting things into your life, I lost my way. But where I know it works is this home I'm living in now is a 4-bedroom detached house. That was a repossession, and we could never have afforded a house like this. And yet I just happened to be driving past this day and I saw this house was on the market and I thought, that looks great, I'm going to have a look at it. When I saw the price, I was like, this can't be real. And I was like, that house is going to be mine. So we arranged to come and see it. We walked through the door and straight away I said to my husband, we're going to live here. This is our new home. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? I said, this is going to be our home. I'm telling you, I feel it. I can feel it. I know this is my home. So anyway, we went through this bidding war. We ended up being the highest bidder for a while. And then somebody came in at the last minute and outbid us. And we were like, oh, what's this all about? And I said, don't worry about it, Mark, because I've decided this house is ours. And we might have been outbid, but something will happen, I promise you. And I wrote myself a good luck in your new home card, put this address on it, put a stamp on it, put it on the fridge. And I left it there. And Mark went, you're nuts. And I went, I don't care what you think. I'm telling you, this house is ours. And it went quiet for about a month, and then we'd got our house on the market, we'd sold ours, and it was about to start going through, and Mark was like, we're going to have to pull out. And I went, no. So I rang the estate agents and I said, look, my husband's concerned that we need to pull out of this deal, but can you just update me with what's happening on that 4-bed detached house, because I still have this feeling that it's going to be ours. And she said, well, it's funny because I've just been in contact with the people that were going through, and they can't raise the finance. They bid too high from what they could actually fund. So we've got to go back to best and final bids. So I said to Mark, right, we know they're out of the picture. They were the top bidders. We know they were out. So I'm going to offer 20,000 less than our highest offer last time. And he was like, can't do that because we won't get it. I went, we will, we absolutely will. So our best and final bid on the second time around was 20,000 less than we would have paid if we'd have got it originally. And we're here. So there you go. It just worked. And the first card that came through my letterbox was my card.
Oh, Donna, I love it. I manifested my house in the exact same way. It is this knowing that the outcome is what you desire it to be, and you will not consider any other option. And so people outside of you will think you're nuts, they'll think you're crazy, they just like Looney Tune. And I'm like, yeah, living in the delusion, but trust me, the delusion will become our physical reality and you'll thank me later. That's what I always say to people, you'll thank me later. I said to Jason, I set a goal of what we want to do with the course, and he kind of looked at me and I went, don't worry, you'll thank me later. He's like, okay.
So let's get on to Jason. So you interviewed Jason Derulo just very, very recently, out of the blue almost. So you've had an audio podcast for a long time.
Years.
And you've switched it up a little bit. You've gone to a video podcast and interviewing individuals that themselves manifest things into their lives. And you'd read Jason's book and saw some parallels and took it from there, really, didn't you?
Well, what's so beautiful is how it actually came to be, because it wasn't like what most people would think. Like most people would think that maybe I reached out to his team and said, can he come on my podcast, and like negotiated that or whatever. But what actually happened is I was thinking from the idea of having the world's most successful people. So we would say they're successful. They have fame, they have audience, they have money, they have experienced big businesses, And so my vision and my dream was, I want to hear from these people. Like, I want these people to share with us, what did they think? How did they feel? Did they use imagination? Did they use any manifestation techniques? Did they manifest it? Do they think they did? Let's hear from them, these real life stories that we look up to and we trust and we're inspired by. Let's hear from them, right? So that's what I wanted to do. So then I end up meeting someone who introduces me to Jason. So this is a personal relationship, a friendship that I have with someone that actually lives with someone that's in his life, that's a family member. And so I was like, when I met this person, I was like, oh, wow. And so I met this person 2 years ago, and it took about 2 years for us to get to this place where Jason was like, yeah, I want to do this. And, so I got to meet Jason and go to his house and talk about it and do this episode. And he said something super funny. He said something like, "Oh yeah, I'll do her podcast." He's like, and maybe I'll reach out. Jimmy Kimmel's been asking me to be on his podcast, so maybe I'll be on his too. I was like, "Come on, like is it Jimmy Kimmel or what's the other Jimmy? Not Jimmy Kimmel, the other one, the other late night host." But anyways, so it was an idea thinking from a certain place, and I know that Jason's like the one of the first of some of the world's most successful people that I'll have on. So I'm always like, okay, guys, let's think of more people. Who else would we like? Like, what other stories do we want to hear? But what's so beautiful is as I was interviewing him, I had not done a lot of interviews before. And so I went into it in this energy of like, okay, when you are interviewing the biggest people in the world and it's natural and it's normal for you, how do you feel? How do you show up? What's your energy like? What's your interview style? Like, what is your calmness like and your assurance and your confidence and all that kind of stuff? And so on my way to interview him, I went to his house. So I was like in his personal home doing an interview and brought the film crew. And as I'm doing it, I'm like, okay, Kathleen, this is normal. This is natural. This is easy. Like, you do this all the time. And I literally showed up there and it felt like that.
Yeah.
And he ended up saying it was one of the best interviews that he's ever done. And he said to me after, he said, I loved your interview style. I've never had an interview done like that before. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, you asked me questions. And then after I would answer, you would tell me the theory. You would tell me the background. You would explain to me what I did. And I'm like, yeah, because this is what I do. I'm not here to just hear from you. I want to hear from you. And then I want to tell the audience, see, this is how he used his imagination to change his vibration. See, this is how he used certainty and knowing. See, this is this universal law, and that's what my vision was. So I went into it with absolute assurance and confidence that that's the woman I am. And it worked beautifully. It was a beautiful episode. Beautiful.
And I listened to it, and one of the first things he talks about, which is really interesting, because I've been guilty of negative self-talk for many, many years, over the years. And he talks about the power of words and the power of using positive words about yourself, and how, it was his mother really, and the Bible, and his sort of belief in God that really that's where it stems from. If you talk bad, you'll get bad. If you talk good, you'll get good. And I thought that's brilliant, because that's a little bit sort of around the sorts of things that when you are trying to manifest something, or when you're working on yourself, when you are going through this self-improvement, self-development work, having affirmations, mirror work, all of that is so powerful. Yeah.
Well, and if you think about words too, Donna, spelling is to cast spells, right?
Yes.
Cadabra. We think about magic, abracadabra. That's using words. Your words are your wand. So, the way you speak to yourself, the way you speak to others, the way you speak about the world, it is actually a reflection of the consciousness that you're in, the belief systems that you hold. So I speak what I want, not what I see. And that's a shift that most people can't fully grasp, but I will literally speak into existence the reality I want instead of what I'm observing. And I don't fall for it. I'm like, oh, that's not real. That's not true.
No. Yeah. And so it's so funny, because I listened to you the other day. You were talking about making decisions.
Yes.
And living as if you're already in your dream, if you like. And being a nurse, my day-to-day look, if you like, is quite drab. Wearing a uniform, wearing tights, wearing flat shoes, not wearing a lot of makeup, not being allowed to wear jewellery, not doing my nails. That's not really the world I want to stay in. So I've got 7 days off work now. So what's the first thing I did last night? I thought, I'm going on a podcast with Kathleen Cameron. I am going to paint my nails. I'm going to make sure that I show up with my makeup on and my hair done and wearing something that makes me feel really good. And I've walked out this morning and I've worn heels. And the feeling that you get, look, I've got all my jewellery on, which I would never be allowed to wear at work. But the feeling that I've had today, I feel a foot taller. I feel proud of how I've gone out and how I've looked today. Yeah. And yet I don't feel that when I'm in my nursing job. So that's interesting, isn't it? And that's also another thing that it is pushing me towards needing to exit my career sooner than I'd planned, because I'm getting all that now. I'm understanding all that.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
when truth is operating in you, it feels good, right? It feels
Mm.
empowered. It feels like confidence. It feels like love. You taking care of yourself and putting on some jewelry and some lipstick and feeling good about yourself, that's the truth. That's the truth of who you are. You're someone who likes to show up and be their best. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's beautiful. But I think it's a reflection, though, of your vibration when you're at work. Like energetically, you aren't feeling your best. So even if they did say to you, you could do your hair, you could do your makeup, you blah, 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 you might not be as inclined even to
And
do
it's
it.
funny, isn't it? Because I get the energy when I'm actually solving problems, even when I'm dealing with conflict, if at the end of that, it's a positive result. I get energy from my job when I'm actually meeting people, when I'm making a difference to them, when I'm making their experience better by doing something that helps them. And that can be coaching my team, that can be supporting my team, but it can be also supporting patients directly. But it's all the other stuff. It's the paperwork, it's the meetings, it's the things that you do that don't align with your values. So, for example, currently we have more patients than we've got beds. So we've been nursing patients in corridors. That doesn't align with my values. That doesn't feel good. And so these are all the things that have started to make me think, am I getting as much joy as I used to from this role? But also, what parts of it are draining me and which outweighs which? And I'm sort of now in that balance where the drain is greater than the joy. So it's time to be looking to move on. There we go. Anyway, so getting back to you, you've helped thousands transform their lives, but what limiting beliefs do you sometimes still catch yourself and you're needing to work through that? Or don't you?
Yeah, there's still some for sure that pop up. Like for example, with my podcast and the type of individuals that I'd like to be on my podcast, if I start to think about who I would love to have on, I do notice a feeling of like, okay, but how? Like, okay, Kathleen, like, is that really gonna happen? Like, who do you think you are, sort of thing? And so those types of beliefs are the ones that I'm like, it doesn't matter how, it will show up, it will happen. Like, I absolutely want to interview Oprah. I think she's so in alignment with this work, and I would love to hear some of her origin story, and I would love to hear how she created resonance in her vibration to create this empire she's built. But when I think about having Oprah on the website, on the podcast, everybody's like, oh, it's already done it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's possible. But then this feeling comes in of like, oh, but how? And what if it doesn't happen for 20 years? And then I'm like, no, Kathleen, like it's already done. All you have to do is ask for Oprah and Oprah will answer. If you build it, she will come. And so I've got my questions written out of what I already am going to ask Oprah. And I've even thought about my outfit and what I want to wear when I sit next to her. And I'm ready. I'm ready for
Beautiful.
Oprah.
Great. That's amazing. So what's your process for overcoming creative blocks or moments of doubt? I mean, yes, you just tell yourself that it will happen, but do you ever have blocks in creativity or thinking about what next?
Okay, so this is really good. I want to tell you like a little bit more of a perspective. So we see the world through two different lenses. Most people are through this one lens, which is the human lens. I call it my human. So the human lens is through the personal mind, through the intellectual mind. So that's the belief that life is happening around us. We're watching it, we're reacting to it, we're in the thick of it, we're in our human. We're getting offended, we're taking things personal, we're having conflicts, we're being inauthentic and disingenuous. We don't like ourselves, we are critical of us, we're critical of the world, we're critical of others, we're gossiping, we're complaining, we're venting. That's kind of this one lens through which I lived my first 37 years of my life, right? I was taught to see the world this way. Then through this work and through awareness and rise in consciousness and through my awakening, I opened up my other lens. And so that other lens is the higher spiritual perspective, the higher spiritual lens. So this is the soul's perspective. This is the knowing. This is the awareness that life isn't what I observe, but life is as I imagine it to be. So this higher spiritual perspective is true creation. So true creation says then, okay, so my life looks like this through the human lens, but I actually want it to be this. So I'm going to come from the higher spiritual consciousness, or you can call it Christ consciousness if you'd like. It doesn't matter. You can call it imagination or fourth dimensional thinking, whatever you want. But coming from that lens says, I'm going to think from possibility instead. I'm going to think from love. I'm going to think from joy. I'm going to think from creation. I'm not going to gossip, complain, vent. I'm not going to be critical. I'm going to release judgment. I'm not going to react to the observation of the outside world. I'm going to go within. So this higher spiritual perspective, or this second lens, is the lens with which creation begins and continues if you open it up. if you allow that portal to be real. So for the first 37 years of my life, I created from the human lens. And so I recreated the same thing I call Groundhog Day. But now I've opened up this secondary lens, this new portal, if you so to speak, this new way of living, this new way of existing. And now it's changed my entire 3D experience. So I say that to say that we are always in these two lenses at the same time. You can't disregard them. You can't rid yourself of the human lens, because then that would just be returning to your true essence, which is to just become an energetic soul. But we're not. We're having a human experience. So that human lens is always here. And that spiritual lens is always here. So now the practice is moving between the lenses to see the world from this one and then see it from this one. So when I find my creativity isn't at its full capacity, I'll notice it's because I'm in my human lens more. If I'm doubting or I'm fearful, I'm in my human lens more. So I always say I'm in spirit or I'm in my human. And so let's say I'm dating and the man I'm dating doesn't call me for 2 days. I'm in my human. I'm like, he hasn't called me. Is he ghosting me? Like, oh my gosh, and you get offended and all this stuff. Human lens. But when I come from a higher spiritual perspective, this is what I do. I say, okay, Kathleen, get out of your human. You are fine. Everything is okay. You are safe. You are secure. I'll go up to the spiritual perspective and I'll say, okay, what would spirit say about this? What would the soul's perspective say? What would be the best outcome? Well, you know what? Perhaps this man, I want a man who communicates daily with me. So perhaps what's really happening here is that this is an awareness that he's not the man for me. Because if he can't communicate for 48 hours, well, that's not what I want in my life. So, source energy, allow this man to leave my life and bring me one who loves to communicate. And so now I've gone into creativity. I've moved out of fear. I've moved out of worry. I've moved out of doubt. I've moved out of my human. I'm back up in spirit. And then I can come back, and the experience that I'm having with this man, it dissipates because I realize it's not real and it's not true and it's just a story in my mind. And so I just move on. And then the universe will bring you a man that communicates beautifully, which is what I have right now. So it's moving between these things. And so I always move back spirit into that flow state, that higher spiritual perspective, and it cures everything. It really does.
Brilliant. Right. I know that you're a very busy lady and we are coming sort of towards the end of the time that I've got with you. So this is a deep and meaningful question. So if you could change one thing about the world, what would it be and how would you begin to make a change?
Well, I am actually actively desiring to make this change in the world. And so when I think about my call to good, Romans 8:28, I have been called by divinity, the greater all of everything, to raise collective consciousness. So what that means is I am here to impact millions of people to think from a higher spiritual perspective and to think from love, to think from peace, to think from creation. It is the dreamers that change the world. It's the ones that are willing to think outside of the box, to think bigger. It's the ones that want to make a difference, that truly are making a difference. So it's one thing for me to want to make a difference, but it's another thing for me to elevate other people to then make a greater difference. So I essentially help people to make their dreams come true. But my dream is their dream coming true, because their dream coming true means somebody else's dream coming true. And so it's this beautiful ripple effect of changing the world together. More people that are thinking from peace, from love, from joy, from prosperity and abundance, the less we will have things like poverty, and how we will have conflict and war and crime, and where we will have less humans killing other humans. Like, I mean, this is wild if you think about some of the collective consciousness things that are occurring right now in the world. In order for us to change the way in which we as humans engage with one another, is to internally go within each of us one consciousness at a time. So if we have thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people connecting to their light, the ripple effect on collective consciousness will be huge. But each person has to understand their role in that. Each person needs to know that by elevating their individual consciousness, that they are impacting collective consciousness as a whole. And so I know this is like it's a big idea, but it is an idea that gives me so much peace and so much purpose in my life. And it actually has me show up, and it has me keep going, and it has me not give up. And it has me in the moments where things appear to be dark, or they appear to be slow, or whatever, I just push through and keep going, because it's not about me.
No. And that's beautiful. I mean, you've been a true inspiration to me. You will continue to be a true inspiration to me. I will continue to follow you on social media and through your programs and the work that you're doing, which is beautiful and changing many, many people's lives. And I totally agree with everything that you've just said. I think the world has become very busy and people have lost who they are. They've lost a little bit of themselves. There's not always the focus and the time given to that introspection. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are just on that treadmill, that Groundhog Day, that are not giving themselves time to live in their light. So, yeah, what a brilliant, brilliant interview. I'm so grateful that you've given me your time today, Kathleen, and thank you so much.
I just want to say, Donna, too, that, you're hearing the call to be a part of the collective consciousness raise, and the creation of this podcast itself and the intuitive hit to ask me to come on is all part of that. And so it's an important difference that you're making. And already you're impacting collective in a different way. And it's so beautiful. So congratulations on the embodiment of this work and what you're learning.
Yeah.
Taking action from that place, you should be really proud. It's brave, it's bold. Not a lot of people will do it. So the fact that you are is really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathleen.
So
Brilliant interview. Thank you.